back, ladies and gentlemen, to the one and only, probably not the one and only, but our Moviecast podcast. Today's podcast will be beginning a new series, a multi-part series. We don't know how many parts it'll be.
Ongoing series.
Yes, ongoing. I like that word. It's good.
Yeah.
The Hollywood discussion, where we discuss the different types of movies that Hollywood frequently releases. And today's episode, we'll be discussing one of the most common releases in Hollywood, which is the sequel.
Yes.
Sequels are everywhere.
Yes, they are.
Would you like to introduce us?
I was going to say, I'm one of your hosts, Logie Bear. And this is my co-host and roommate, Connor Shinman, or the Shininator.
Boom.
I don't know why I said your last name, but I did.
No, it works. Now people know why I'm the Shininator.
There you go. Yeah. Check them out on Shininator Film Reviews. It'll be in the YouTube description. Go and like and follow. I stream Twitch, obviously, because that's what some of you are watching on now. But if you want to catch me playing video games or something, the link will be in the description as well. We'd love for you to check it out. Like and share the video too. That'd be really nice. Our Kevin James video actually is successful in this in the sense for two people who just do this for on a whim. It actually gets a lot of traction and everything. So we would like our other videos to do that too. So if you share them around with your friends, if you know other people that like movies and entertainment, hit them up with the link. I mean, we're an hour of your time. You can throw it on in the background. We're not a visual podcast, really.
Yeah.
Pretty sweet. Yet. Maybe we'll get there one day.
One day it'll be us podcasting to interpretive dance.
Maybe when I get an LED wall someday in my life, then we'll do something cool. But not today. Today we talk about sequels.
I think, I might be taking the lead a little bit more on this podcast, but that's all right. I think we're going to start off, not diving into specifics too heavily, but just our thoughts on sequels. Logie Bear, what are your thoughts on sequels in movies?
They're okay.
Yeah.
I think, and well, this what I'm about to say can branch off into its own podcast in and of itself. Hollywood needs to start making more one-off movies.
Yes, they do. We agree on that.
Sequels are good. Don't get me wrong. There are some really good sequels out there that surpass the first movie, but vast majority do not, and that's because the creator of the original story only had one story to tell. But the producers and everybody see all this money rolling in, and they're like, we'll just back a dump truck full of money at this person's house, and they're just going to have to come up with a story. And then it just doesn't work very well. And so, sometimes you do get really good ones. But the vast majority of sequels are not that good. I'm not going to say the vast majority, but
a lot of them.
A lot of sequels are not as good. And that's just because they don't have a good story to tell. And it's not ever for budget or anything like that. Sequels, I've never seen a sequel with a less budget than the original movie. So it's not for a lack of visual effects or direction or cast. Well, sometimes casting, but it's not for like that type of thing. It's just that this writer did not have another story in mind, and so they had to come up with one, and it's never as good as their initial idea because the passion necessarily isn't there, right? And so, there's the TV show that we talked about. Seinfeld. Seinfeld. Yeah. The writers did as many episodes as they wanted.
Then they shut it down.
They're done. It was at its highest point, and they're like, we have no more ideas. We're not going to force it. Done. And that was that. That's awesome. We need more things like that.
Yeah. I believe that sequels have incredible potential. They can be amazing. Like, straight up, you're holding the Star Wars cup.
Yep.
The second Star Wars movie is widely recognized as one of the greatest sequels of all time.
I would agree.
And it worked. Right? Sequels can be great. If you watch a Kevin James episode, like we talked about earlier, some sequels aren't good. Like we talked about Grown Ups 2 and Paul Blart Mall Cop 2. They're not good. They seriously underdid what the first movie did, and given the reputation that was set before it, and even just as a movie alone, they were not good.
They suffer from
sequels. There is a time and a place for a sequel. Absolutely.
Yep.
right? We talk about Star Wars. Yes, that story is so big that you couldn't fit it in one movie.
Well, it was written to be a trilogy.
Yeah.
So.
Well, then by the time the second one came out, they were writing to be 2 trilogies. Just the first one was going to come out later.
Yeah, way later.
Which is a little confusing, but yeah. I don't hate sequels. I agree with Logan. There should be so much less. You look at, they're making what, the 25th James Bond movie.
Yep.
And everyone talks about reinventing James Bond and making this new like spin-off of James Bond. You can also just make another spy movie without 007 in the title.
Yeah. Well, and I think the only defense I can come up with for James Bond is that some of them aren't technically sequels. Like, you don't watch all of them in a chronological order. They're their own set stories. It just essentially in the same like universe, I guess.
Yeah, except for the Daniel Craig.
Yes, except for the newest release of them. Those are chronological. So like the older ones that were just coming out year after year in the 80s, they weren't connected movies. I wouldn't even call them sequels. I would just call them like an IP and like an intellectual property just kind of being beaten to death. Because like Mission Impossible, one of my favorite movie franchises.
You know what? Let's just dive right into good sequels.
Yeah, there we go. So I'm going to talk about Mission Impossible. Second Mission Impossible movie is by far the worst.
And it's a down step from the first one.
Just so
Which
hard.
is probably not how we should have started the good sequels section. But
no,
continue.
But we talked about this part beforehand. But 3 and on, in my opinion, just get better.
Yeah.
Not only from an action standpoint, but everything, because they're actually telling like a good continuous story.
Yeah.
From 3 and on.
Especially with 5 and 6.
Yes, but especially between 5 and 6. Well, and actually 3 links all the way back to 5 and 6.
Yeah.
So, spoilers, his wife's alive. Whatever. Yeah. Like, they've been out for years. But the third Mission Impossible movie is such a good sequel to the second one because it redeems the franchise.
Yep. And you know what, truth be told, we probably wouldn't have a 5 or a 6 or a 4.
No, we wouldn't.
Especially to the scale that they were, if 3 hadn't been good. We might have had more.
We would have, but
I don't think they would have been as awesome, like awe-inspiring.
Yes.
As they are.
And that, to me, is a good definition of what a good sequel is it's awe-inspiring. It actually, like...
It goes above and beyond every time.
Yes. They somehow make you on the edge of your seat again.
Yeah.
In the same universe, in the same story, really. They bring you to the edge again. That's what a good sequel is, in some respect. And it's a continuation of a character that they set out already. One thing that I think good sequels do is they don't have the same character arc. Like, one movie doesn't...
Again.
Yes. I love sequels that have a nice, big, overarching like character arc of like there's good growth between all of the movies.
Yeah.
Like Mission Impossible, like Star Wars, Lord of the Rings.
Star Wars.
Yeah, Lord of the Rings though is a really good one. I like that. I don't like in sequels where it's the same plot arc. You got your plot action, then you got your rising action, you got your climax, you got your resolution, and you're done. And it's the same one. It's the same
beats.
Yeah, it's the same beats every movie. I don't like that. That's not a good sequel to me. Harry Potter, again, I think are fairly good sequels overall. I think the series...
And we'll go more into depth into Harry Potter when we talk about like adaptations.
Yeah, that's a whole other topic. But I'm just talking...
But he does grow between movies and...
Yes. And it's not the same arc every movie. It's a big continuous one, and I think that also is what makes a good sequel.
Yeah. And I think to recognize that you are a sequel, back to Mission Impossible, it's called Mission Impossible for a reason. They do some impossible things, right? And in the 6th one, Fallout, they straight up like almost look at the camera and address how ridiculous it is and some of the things they're doing, where they're trying to cut the wire on a bomb, but they need the button to be pushed first or something at the end, and the one character's like, all right, let's cut it at like 3 seconds. You don't just give them enough time. And Simon Pegg character says, "What? Don't you know who we are? We have to cut it at 1." It's like, yeah, I mean, what would this movie be if you cut it at 3 seconds? Exactly. You had to cut it at 1 second. Yeah. Right? But you also build in the tension at that same time. Right? Which, it's a skill that they've done well. Yeah, you gonna say something?
Well, I was gonna say it was just a Mission Impossible banter. I was gonna say I loved, just that scene specifically. I was like, oh no, I didn't have high hopes for it. Of like, oh no, they've given away the alert that it's only gonna take 1 second, but they did it really well.
Yeah.
So, side note, that's your Mission Impossible portion of this podcast.
Yeah. And so, you got number 1, then it drops, and number 2 is a bad sequel.
It's yeah.
And then it goes up from there. Good job.
You redeemed yourself.
I want to talk about the opposite of that. I was going to talk about Star Wars next, but I thought, let's mirror what we're talking about.
Yeah, go for it.
But really, we're not going to be talking about what's a good sequel, what's a bad sequel in chunks anymore. That's going to blend.
Oh, yeah.
Next up, I think Transformers we talked about. You got the first one, which sets a standard. It's not a great standard, but it's a standard for the movies. Then the second one, which originally, when it came out, and even when I was younger, the second one was worse than the first one. But I've gone back and watched them since, and you agree with me. The second one's better than the first one.
The second one is by far better.
And then they go downhill from there.
Yeah.
Worse and worse and worse.
The third one is a little redeemable, but after that, they're bad.
But it's still worse than the second one. Do you agree with that?
Yeah. For the sake of this, I will, yes.
Yeah. And I think the only reason I'm pretty sure the only reason they kept making them was like because they kept making money.
They sell them toys.
But, one of the things about Transformers, it's in the title. It's really cool to watch them transform. Yeah. And in the first 2, you see quite a bit of transformations, and it's awesome. And I mean, like some of those, like that first one was 2007? Yes. Those effects are amazing for 2007. And it's just cool to watch them all transform. There's a scene in the alley where all the Autobots transform and it's rotating around and they're all like twisting and turning and all their little poses as they become humanoid. It's awesome. You get to the 5th one and you watch like 2 people transform. And it's boring.
So I'll tell you actually, I actually looked into that.
Yeah.
So the reason that they stopped showing so much of the transforming action was because a couple of things. One, it is insanely hard to animate.
I don't doubt it.
You literally have this. You literally have something transmorphing. Like if you don't know, animation is not the study, but like the action of making something move to make it look real.
Yeah.
It's adding motion to things. And so when you talk about a giant mech robot transforming, that is an insane amount of animation on top of a completely computer-generated model.
Yeah.
And most likely in a computer-generated environment.
Yeah.
Connor and I love Corridor Digital, and they do a little section in I think one of their podcasts or something where they talk about like the rendering aspect of a movie like that.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
They have like it's like a warehouse full of just graphics cards that just literally actually caught fire. Like because they were pushing.
It's a lot of work.
They're pushing these graphics so hard. And in the first movie, you have to do that. You have to establish that this is such a cool thing, and they did it really well. But it just got like way too monotonous and expensive. Even as the budgets grew bigger, that just meant more Transformers and less transforming.
Yeah.
Because if you notice, there aren't that many Transformers on screen in the first one, but you get later on, you got ones in the background.
And in the first one, all the bad guys look almost exactly the same.
They're all just this gray jet model.
Gray and spiky.
Yeah. So, and then also, this isn't true, but Michael Bay just wanted more budget for explosions.
Yeah.
So there went the CG budget.
Yeah.
But that's a little hint in that specific regard as to why the sequels for Transformers have less transforming in it is because it's an insane thing to animate.
Yeah, and you know what? I think they should have worked around that.
Yeah,
you know,
100%.
Put less Transformers in your movies so we can watch them transform.
Yeah,
That's
it's not
what we're there
it's
for.
not an excuse. It was just a cool side piece. They really should have. It's called Transformers. I want to see Bumblebee. I will say
from a car into a person.
Well, they do some really cool stuff. I think in the fourth one.
Are you talking about the Transformium?
No, that sucked. That was
that's
stupid.
awful.
That was stupid. It looked terrible.
It's worse than not transforming.
Yeah, it looked terrible. No, maybe it's the third one. I don't know. B turns into a car, transforms, leaps, catches them, and then turns back into the car.
Yeah, that was the third one.
Oh, okay, that's really cool. That's a good use of transforming.
I'm sure he's done it multiple times, but
yeah,
he definitely did it at least once in the third
one.
But
anyway, back to the sequel discussion. Yeah, the second one is better by far, but they
progressively get worse after that, which is again the mirror to Mission Impossible, and you know they got bigger, right? Longer, bigger, more expensive to make, right? The money was there, but it didn't work.
Did not work. Well, no, it did work because they're making another one.
What are you talking about? The sequel to Bumblebee? Because Michael Bay is not making anymore.
He's not making anymore, but they're going to be making a Transformers 6 in the same universe.
I hope they don't.
Yeah, they are, because it sells toys, bro. It's not meant for us.
Now, this isn't it's not a sequel, but the Bumblebee movie that they made was a good movie. And not just because they showed Bumblebee transforming a few times, but they grounded it really well. They made an inspiring story, and that worked. Which, we'll probably talk about that.
Yeah, we'll do a Transformers in review where we in-depthly trash on the movies.
Yeah.
But so sequels again. Back to the last thing on Transformers. They should have stopped after the third one. Because they should have just been done. All of the characters' arcs were finished. They had to create new ones.
Yeah.
They had to get new actors. It was a reboot of the universe, essentially. And if you have to do that, you should probably not make it.
Yeah.
Or at least give a lot of distance in between movies so that, you don't go from watching Shia LaBeouf to watching Mark Wahlberg.
Who are very different people.
Oh, so different.
Mark Wahlberg has the magic ability to find an American football in a place where it shouldn't belong.
Yeah.
And then hit someone in the head with it.
He also is just apparently he basically is Professor Xavier with technology. Apparently, he can just read it. So know,
even though he can't make anything that works.
Yeah. But he can fix an alien robot. Sure. Yeah. Good one.
Yeah. So, Transformers 2, good sequel. The rest, not so much.
Yeah, definitely decline.
Now, lift up your cup, please. Show the camera.
Oh yes.
Let's talk about Star Wars.
Rise of Skywalker, baby.
Now, he has a Rise of Skywalker cup. We're going to talk about all 9. I don't think we'll talk about the... that's Force Awakens cup.
No, I know.
I'm telling them. Oh. We won't be talking about Rogue One or Solo, because they're kind of offshoots from the main story. But let's talk about 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 7, 8, 9.
Yeah.
Like I said earlier, number 5 is an amazing sequel. It's an absolute great movie. And the thing is, people talk about, and I agree, 5 is the best Star Wars movie. But there's one thing. You cannot have Episode 5 without Episode 4. It builds right off of it.
Yep.
Very smoothly. Right? It's a continuation of these characters. Right? If you kind of started off without watching the 4th one, a lot of it would be confusing. Yeah. Right? Especially with the dynamics between people.
Yep.
Luke Skywalker is distant from the rest of the cast for most of the movie. Doing his own thing, he kind of shows up at the end. And it works entirely because of the 4th one. They set up, how he fits in the story and who he interacts with. And even though, a section of your main cast, Luke Skywalker and R2-D2, are gone for the whole movie, the movie still works beautifully because it's part of that story that they're talking about.
Yep.
Now, 6, truthfully, I think is a step down. And
a
lot of that is because of the acting. The acting takes a dive.
Well, there was a different director.
There was a different director for all three of the original trilogy.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
you can tell.
Yeah. Yeah, the acting took a dive, and the it just didn't feel as intense or as grounded with the characters as the first two were.
And I will say, one thing that Star Wars, at least this original trilogy, did well, it's that grandiose, overarching character development that I so deeply look for in sequels. And it happens in all the characters. The reason Empire Strikes Back is such a good sequel, they lose.
Yep.
Like,
they get their butts kicked.
Spoilers alert, they suck. They lose.
Luke like, straight up loses his hand and his only weapon. So.
Like, they're left with nothing. Right?
Yeah.
And that sets up for a really good sequel, again, in and of itself, but they lose. Like, see, that to me that makes a really good sequel so intriguing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But especially when you flip it on its head, the expectation, that the good guys are going to prevail, especially if they've won before. Now the original trilogy, 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah.
Which I guess are prequels, but then they're sequels to each other. So number 2 sucks. it doesn't.
It's got one redeeming factor, and it's a small one.
Are you talking about the Battle of Geonosis?
The Battle of Geonosis. That's the only thing that's good about it.
Yeah, your characters, like, what are you doing with them? Right? In the original trilogy, they talked about how great Anakin Skywalker was, and this warrior that he was, and how respected he was. And in the first, episode 1, he's a kid, and he's kind of, it's an introduction, so you don't really get to learn a lot, except that he can actually fly a plane pretty well. The second one, now he's an adult. This is when you set up, who he is and this reputation that he's going to have that leads him to this original trilogy, and it's not there. He whines about everything.
Oh,
he's breaking
so
rules.
whiny.
And it's not like I'm breaking rules like, the cop that rushes into the building. No, he's just like breaking the Jedi law because he's selfish and just wants to do it.
Well, also, he's just like not good.
No.
Like as a human being, he's kind of a piece of garbage.
Yeah, he's
and all intents and purposes, he's just a jerk. Like, he does not treat Padme very well.
No.
Near the end of it.
Nor does he treat Obi-Wan very well.
No. And like Obi-Wan's really sticking his neck out for him too.
He has a massive superiority complex, and it shows.
Yeah. Which that is such a cool writing tool that you have put there. You can do so much with it. And
if you had started with that,
yes.
If these movies had come up before 5, and 6, then you could have changed how he was described, in the later movies. Right? To say, like, yeah, he's an excellent pilot and a great soldier, and then cut it there, and then maybe, in the later episodes, like, yeah, he's also kind of a dick.
Like, and it just, I don't know. He was so eager to be like a Jedi, but like the one rule, you can't marry anybody.
Yeah.
Breaks like the one rule kind of thing,
in the first movie that we see him as a Jedi.
Right. Sure.
So, then we go on to episode 3. What about the droid attack on the Wookiees? I wasn't too thrown by that.
Yeah.
It was whatever.
Now, the third one
is better.
Way better.
It's not great.
It's not great, but it's better. It's way better in comparison to the second one. It's still not amazing. But
it's also definitely a filler piece. This is where it hits this odd middle ground between sequel and prequel. Because they are keeping the story going. But now, because of what they've done in the second one, now they have to fill from here to here.
We got to fill a large gap in one movie.
And they didn't really set themselves up great.
Well, they shot themselves in the foot.
To have a smooth transition. So it's a rushed movie, right? And all of a sudden he has this scar on his eye that you don't really ever learn about.
Yeah.
And he's more of a jerk. And all of a sudden, his wife's pregnant now. By the way, he got married in like the ending scene of the last movie, and now they're expecting because they needed they needed Darth Vader to be Luke's dad.
Yeah, they needed a catalyst that sparked Darth Vader.
Yeah.
Which I think.
And also, and this is probably one of the biggest sins of this movie is that they build up this Jedi Council as this, this organization that protects the galaxy.
Yeah.
And when push comes to shove at the end and they have to take down the Emperor, they are all worthless.
Anakin just wipes the floor with them.
Yeah,
and the younglings.
It's kind of pathetic. Nobody knows how to fight anymore, even after you've established that there's hundreds of Jedi, and none of them can't do anything. Wow, it's great.
That's one of my biggest pet peeves in action movies.
You know what?
When you establish.
You know what? I might even say this. We're talking about sequels. Episode 3 might be a better movie. It's not a good sequel.
Yes, I was gonna say that. It is by far a better, just like Star Wars movie, just visually and story wise. But as a sequel, still not good because the foundation of the sequel was bad.
Yeah.
Number 2 was bad, and instead of kind of like springboarding off of that and trying something new, they just like went down. Right? They followed the same trajectory of the second movie and went down. Whereas like Mission Impossible 2 being bad, they didn't build off of that and follow the same trajectory. They went something completely different.
Or different enough, at least.
It's very different. The first 2 are actually like pretty espionage movies, and then the third one is just like action.
Yeah.
So like they did change their style a little bit, and it works.
Yeah.
So if the foundation, if your prequel is bad, your sequel is probably going to be worse.
It's definitely got a struggle ahead of it.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to the Disney trilogy, episodes 7, 8, and 9. Allow me to preface:
My favorite trilogy.
They're a mess. As sequels, the story was literally retconned twice.
But that's because Disney made the stupidest. Why did they just let JJ just make his story start to finish?
Or Ryan should have done it.
Yes, I'm fine with that.
They shouldn't have had 2 different directors for episodes 8 and 9.
No, they should not. It was stupid.
Now, Logan holds the controversial opinion that episode 9 is the best Star Wars movie ever.
No, I did not say that. I did not. I still think Empire Strikes Back is the best Star Wars movie ever
it's
made.
His favorite.
It's just The Rise of Skywalker is my favorite.
Gotcha.
Big differences.
Gotcha.
I really like this trilogy actually, and I think it is a good sequel.
Explain that to me.
Force Awakens, in and of itself, is a good sequel because it is actually just like rebooting the franchise. Like, it does a good job at bringing people back into the Star Wars universe. And after such a terrible job that the prequels did, you had a big job ahead of you, and I think they did a good job. So when we're talking socially, just like in the world, I think it's a good sequel in that sense culturally, because it actually like brought people back into the Star Wars universe. It added something new, like
in
the story of itself. It actually like
what are you referring to?
The Force Awakens. It added.
Yeah. What's the new thing you referred to?
New thing is the wrong word. They did something new in the sense that they switched the cast of characters around a little bit, and they added to it. So you never had a turned stormtrooper before. They add that, and I actually think Finn is a good addition.
Yep.
I think he makes that sequel better. Then you have like Rey, this like new hero who isn't Luke Skywalker, is a very different character.
Yeah. Who
I think actually is a good new Star Wars character. It sets up a good sequel.
Yeah. Even if Poe is just Han Solo.
Yeah, but I didn't touch Poe. There's a reason, because he's Han Solo and just sucks at being Han Solo. But I think that's why Force Awakens is, because it takes those things that we love about Star Wars, those kind of archetypes, and it puts them in new characters and tells a good story.
Yes, I can agree with that.
And so that makes it a good sequel.
Yes, but as a trilogy, 7 to 8 to 9, I think as a sequel, it's messy.
It's definitely a Mission Impossible 1 to 3 vibe.
And allow me to say this as well. You were talking about how you don't want a character to go through the same story beats in a sequel. That's exactly what happens to Finn
Yes,
episode 7 and 8.
I agree.
I don't hate episode 8. I think it's a fine movie.
Yeah, I think it's fine.
Finn's story sucks.
He's useless.
He just learns. He learns the exact same lesson that he taught himself in episode 7 again, just through another character.
The world sucks.
Yeah, that war is bad, and he should, try to stop the war.
Yeah, protest.
He learned that last movie. He already knew that. But yeah,
I'm just gonna read Wyatt's comments.
It says Colin Trevorrow was originally going to direct episode 9, which is true. And actually, if you look at the art, the concept art for that movie and the original plan, it was a pretty cool story. Now, moving from episode 8 to episode 9, one of the biggest moves they make is to say that in episode 8 they revealed Ray's parents were absolute nobodies. Which was this. You want to talk about, archetypes thrown onto characters?
I would have loved that!
It's an amazing thing to do.
Would have been so good!
To say you don't actually have to be someone special in this universe. You don't have to be a Skywalker or a Kenobi or a Palpatine to be important. You can literally be a nobody.
You can be Ray.
And you're important. And then they retcon that so hard.
And and that comes back to just having two different directors with two diametrically opposed visions. Just like, watch Force Awakens, and then you watch Rise of Skywalker, and you can see, you can kind of see the base of a story that was going to be told there.
Yeah.
But then you throw 8 in there, and I'm not saying 8 is bad. It's just, it was just such a dumb decision. And it just, I would have loved to have Rian Johnson's story pan out of, exactly like you said. I would love to meet a character in Star Wars who isn't already some stupid name that people know about.
Yeah.
Right? I would have loved that, but they didn't. And I don't blame that on JJ necessarily for retconning it in. I don't know. I agree with you in that, and that's what makes that is the core of why those two movies are just bad sequels to each other.
And we'll say this, if you like episode 8, if you like episode 9, if you like episode 9, good on you. They can be good movies.
Yeah.
They're not good sequels. They work too hard to undo what the previous one has done. 9 more so than 8. And it results in a very zigzag story.
Yeah, 7 and 8 are bad sequels, or 8 and 9 are bad sequels. 7 is a fine sequel to the end of Return of the Jedi.
I can accept that. Yes,
I will say that, and I will agree with you on the latter. That 8 and 9 are bad sequels anyway, because it sucks, and I'm really sad.
Yeah.
But we're gonna maybe another question. I don't know.
Huh?
Lord of the Rings is what I think we should jump to next.
Let's do it.
Because truth be told, I do not like Fellowship of the Ring that much.
Yeah. He's only seen it once, though.
No, I've seen that one twice.
Oh, my bad.
I had seen Fellowship of the Ring before. Or most of it before. I think maybe I didn't watch the last, 10 minutes of it. Anyway, I've seen it, whatever. The Fellowship of the Ring is, I understand it has to be slow, it's setting up the whole, story or whatever, but it's just when you look at Two Towers, man, it is just by far such a good sequel.
And man, we're talking about, the awe-inspiring sequel. These movies build up battles.
Yeah.
So, the big battle in the first Lord of the Rings is in the Mines of Moria, I would say. Probably. Right? I guess there's that fight at the end.
On the beach, the foresty area, but that's not really that big. It's
I think the Moria was a more
you got
intense,
the Balrog and everything. So.
Intense fight scene, right? That's your fight sequel.
Yeah.
Or a movie 1. Movie 2 was called Helm's Deep. With a big battle. Awesome.
We also have the Ents too, and they destroy.
But I would say the big fight of the second one.
The climactic fight is Helm's Deep.
Right. Awesome. Now we go to the third movie. What's the white city called? Do you remember?
Mediocre Trout probably knows.
If you know, let us know. There's a big fight at the end, which pretty much takes up most of the movie. And the big fights of each movie escalate and escalate and escalate, and the tension builds. Man, in that final movie, you barely get a sense ever that the good guys are winning.
Yeah.
Until that ring goes in the volcano. Spoiler alert.
Well, I didn't even actually think the ring was gonna make it into the volcano.
Minas Tirith. Thank you.
Yeah. I honestly didn't think the ring would make it in the.
Yeah.
I honestly thought they're gonna get all this way and fail, and the armies are gonna win though.
Yeah.
And then Frodo's gonna have to come down and anyway, but and you want to talk about grandiose character development? Oh my! Frodo's kind of the same. He starts off really pure at heart in the first one, but
he gets a little bit darker and more.
But that's only because he's wearing the ring longer.
Yeah.
That's not character development. That's just the ring.
That's character alteration.
Sure. But Gandalf
straight up dies,
but he actually gets a big kind of character change.
Yeah.
Because he becomes Gandalf the White.
Spoiler alert.
They've been out for 20 years. It's fine.
We just have to address that we're spoiling something.
Sure. But Gandalf gets this huge character change, or at least some development in his character. Because in the first time you see him, he's fun and joyful, and Frodo runs up to him, and he has the fireworks, and it's this whole thing. It's very joyful. The third one, dude's running around on Shadowmere, freaking sworded and staff in hand, beating people up and everything like that, and he's like straight up in the fight wrecking fools. And it's because like the mantle of responsibility placed on him has changed, right? Because he's the White, he's the most powerful wizard now or whatever, so he has more responsibility to keep Earth in line. But Middle Earth, he takes that and runs with it and does such a good job of it, and it's a really great character. And you see that development through 1, through 2, and then through 3.
And as sequels, let's talk about the other thing that these do really well, that other movies can do well, and this is where sequels can work.
Yeah.
The story flows through all 3.
And
because they take place pretty much kind of picking up one after the other.
Yeah. Well, and I think...
But also having their own story in each one, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Good job.
Also, I just gotta say, the King of Rohan also has a really good character development arc. He goes from like brainwashed and like just not caring about his people to like running up and down the battlefield, smashing shields and getting them all hyped and everything. Yeah. Like that's awesome. Just have to, and that leads into the sequel.
Aragorn and Gimli also have great character development. Legolas not as much, but he's cool to look at.
He barely says anything.
Yeah, Gimli has this nice arc where he learns to accept the elven race and accept Legolas as a friend.
And I think Legolas has that in return, just not to the extent that Gimli has.
He's more of a conduit for Gimli's arc than having his own arc. But it's fine, because those movies are awesome.
They are very good.
You want to talk about The Hobbit?
No, because I really like The Hobbit. I don't want to get roasted. No, fine, whatever. We'll go for it.
Well, let's talk about them as sequels. Just because we're talking about Lord of the Rings.
Desolation of Smaug? That's the second one, right? It's actually a good sequel to the first one.
Yep. And, we're talking about, Empire Strikes Back, and they lose after they've won previously. They kind of won in the first one.
Not really. Weren't they... I don't remember how the first... Oh, they were literally on the tree.
They were fighting the wargs.
Right.
And then the eagles took them, and they got closer to the mountain.
Don't they get sent back to Rivendell?
No. They meet other elves in the woods.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, the second one, I would actually go on a limb and say the second one is the best one.
I would agree with you.
But as a direct sequel to Desolation of Smaug, Battle of the Five Armies, I actually think it's fine.
As a sequel,
it's fine in the sense that it picks up a story and...
The one thing I will say that Battle of the Five Armies does not do well is they really accelerate Thorin's condition.
Yes.
His sickness.
It's just like...
He's fighting, brothers in arms in the second one, and then, like, the next time we see him in the third one,
he hates
everyone and all he wants is gold.
Yeah.
And that was a little quick.
Yeah, and I agree and that's just they have to get the story moving. The writing just has to get it going.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I think they're fine. It's sequels. I don't think they're good prequels, personally. I still really love The Hobbit. I think it's super magical and whimsical, but that's a whole other discussion for another time.
as sequels to each other, they're all right. They're pretty good.
They are pretty good.
They're not as good as other ones we've talked about, but they're not the worst.
They are not the worst.
Let's talk about one more franchise before we just branch off into smaller sequels.
I was gonna say, so on a big franchise then.
Have you seen Terminator?
No, I saw the first. I saw the second one.
That's the best one.
Oh no, I saw Genesis.
Have fun.
Is that the one where it's like
Arnold Schwarzenegger's really old?
Maybe.
And he saved Sarah Connor as a child. And
Terminator Salvation then.
That's the one without time travel.
And it's just them fighting alien robots the whole time.
Yeah. In like the post-apocalyptic world.
Okay, yeah, that's the one I saw, and I hated it because I didn't know anything of what was going on.
Yeah, that was. So we're talking about sequels. Man, these movies are messed up. So there's the first one, right? Sets up a story. Cool. Terminator's the bad guy. Second one, they do something really cool.
He's the good guy.
Where two robots come back, and you don't know and everyone kind of knows he's the guy now. When this movie came out, for the first 25 minutes of the movie, you think that the same Terminator is out to kill the kid. Until the moment when they first meet, and then they flip it on its head. Guess what?
Yeah.
The villain of the first movie is now the good guy. Even though they're not really the same person, but they're the same actor. Look exactly the same deal. Cool. It's a nice build off the first one. You know, action's escalated, characters are escalated.
Yeah.
The role of Sarah Connor builds realistically from the first one to the second one. Then we get to the first Terminator 3.
Oh.
Which is Sarah Connor's dead and now John Connor's alive and Judgment Day's coming, but he's like a junkie. So the Terminator goes back to try and motivate him to save the world in Judgment Day. And it's bad. Because they really mess up what they're trying to do in the previous movies, and the reputation of John Connor that they set up is totally undone in this movie until the last 2 minutes. Then you have Terminator Salvation, which is a sequel / prequel / something.
Yeah.
It's not great. It's bad.
Something.
The whole point of that movie was to explain why John Connor has a scar on his face, which is not a great point for a movie. Then they tried to reboot it twice.
They did try to do it, yes.
So then they released Terminator Genesis as a sequel somewhere. Kind of a sequel to undo the first one. And then they stopped Judgment Day, which just creates an entire time paradox if you think about it for 3 minutes.
Yes, it does.
And then they did this most recent one, Terminator Dark Fate, which is the best Terminator movie since Terminator 2, but it's still not good. Where they killed John Connor. There's another spoiler alert.
That's a bit of a recent one.
Yeah. They killed John Connor and then say that, well, John Connor never actually was the hero of Judgment Day. He was actually someone else. And now we're going to save this character.
Yeah.
And they can't, but instead of this robot or this friendly Terminator, saving them, it's just this other character who's just a jerk the whole time. And just can't get along with anyone. And another step down. So, I guess, this is another Transformer situation. You got your first one set a standard, second one raised it, and it just fell down after that.
Yeah. The Jenga.
Yeah.
I've seen the first two Terminators, and the second one is just by far better.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Just immense. You got this amazing semi-truck scene, and so many things. Yeah. One other, I have to talk about it. Fast and Furious.
Oh yeah.
We can't have the Moviecast without mentioning Fast and Furious. It's in the bylaws.
Number 5. Accepting that is, I'm going to say that's one of the greatest sequels.
Well, okay. So, just number 1, the first Fast and Furious movie to Too Fast, Too Furious. Too Fast, Too Furious, not a good sequel. It's not.
It strayed a lot from what the first one was, except for one character.
I love Too Fast, Too Furious just as a movie. I love the buddy cop between Brian and Tyrese.
Yeah.
Or Roman. And I love Too Fast, Too Furious, but it sucks as a sequel. It is just on its own, on an own island, and it's just this one. It's not really a sequel. It's a spin-off, if anything. And so with Tokyo Drift, the first three are not sequels to the first one in any way.
Third one especially, because it
doesn't have any of the same characters until Dom shows up.
For the last, Han shows up in the other ones, even though it takes place.
But it's not a sequel yet. It's still.
As a sequel to 2, it's not very good.
It's not a sequel to 2. It's a spin-off. And so, but then you get Fast 4, a direct sequel to Fast 1.
Yeah.
Which is really weird. Fast and Furious is the stupidest timeline up until they finally until Justin Lin, our Lord and Savior, fixed it.
Yeah.
For the Fast franchise. So, Fast 4 is actually an amazing sequel to the first Fast movie.
Yeah. Then we get to Fast 5.
An even better one!
And they bring all of it back together.
Everything.
And that is well done.
It's paid off.
It makes sense. It's not confusing. It's not like what's happening here.
Yeah, why are they over there?
And if you haven't seen, 1, 2, or 3 in a while,
you're fine.
They introduce everything you need to know, but everything bonus is just kind of what you would know from the previous movies type of thing. And the characters interact with each other so well. And man, what a good job.
Yeah.
6.
It's a good sequel to 5 because it does the thing where they have the formula and up the ante.
With the longest runway ever.
Yeah. They sure up their runway budget just skyrocketed.
That's bigger than a Transformers budget.
Yeah. Just for the runway. Anyway, and then you get 7, which is not.
You don't think so?
I'm trying to remember how 7 starts. Is that the one with? Oh, right. Yeah, that's the one with Deckard Shaw or Owen Shaw is trying to kill him, right? Because the end of 6 is Han dying.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. I don't think.
I think it works as a sequel in.
It does. Where the characters just kind of loosely connected.
Where the characters are at the beginning is where you would expect them to be after 5 and 6 and.
Yeah. Okay, I'll give you that. That's fair.
And then 8 does a cool thing where they. Did we just talk about 7?
Yeah, we just briefly mentioned 7.
I feel like I'm missing something. Yeah, okay.
Well, because
7's also cool because of the villain. Because it's a direct impact of what they did in the last movie. Because they killed Luke Evans, and now Jason Statham is out to get them.
They killed Luke Evans.
They blew him up in a plane.
Yeah, okay, you're right. Okay, I was getting that confused with something else. It is a good sequel then.
Yeah. 8 is interesting.
It's not a good sequel.
Because they bring back, what's her nuts though? That cop that has Dominic's baby.
Yeah, but that's such a weak line. It is not
also
good.
Also, my favorite part of 8 is because they added a real world element that happened in between when they named their baby Brian at the end because Paul Walker died and his character's name is Brian. And everyone's really emotional about it. And it's like, in this universe, he's not dead.
He's not dead.
You guys shouldn't be crying right now.
No, you should be calling him Paul if you wanted it to people to be crying. That annoys me so much.
Yeah.
No.
I will agree with you that 8 is not the greatest sequel to 7. But it's looking like 9 will be a good sequel to 8. Because it looks like they're running with this Cypher villain for the next 3 movies.
We didn't see her die. She jumped out of a plane.
Well, we know she's coming back anyway. Without those awful dreadlocks. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, whatever makeup designer thought that was a good idea. Sorry, it's not.
Yeah.
It just wasn't. You could tell it was a wig and it was awful.
Yeah.
You should have just, let her be Charlize Theron. But,
yeah.
The Fast franchise is actually really good at keeping it connected.
Yeah. Well, maybe not so much at the beginning, but now they picked it up and now they have it.
The first 3 movies fell to the thing where they had 3 different directors. It was just like Star Wars. So that's why they're not so connected.
Well,
But
you say that, but episodes 4, 5, and 6 of Star Wars also had different directors and were connected well.
they had George Lucas like paving the
He was
way.
kind of there.
He was paving the way.
He was a lot less involved than people think.
Sure. Anyway, last big franchise because Wyatt Mediocre pointed it out in chat. Jurassic Park.
How many have you seen?
I saw the first newest one.
Okay.
Jurassic World? No.
Yeah, Jurassic World.
That's the only one I saw. I'll be honest, Jurassic Park scared me as a kid, so I didn't watch it.
Jurassic Park is a good movie. And they set up this idea of this theme park really well, and it goes south. Because looking at it, and the characters are all saying this is not actually a great idea, and it doesn't end up being a good idea. And there's horror elements that work really well, there's character moments that work really well. Good movie. Everyone leaves, they say, we're not touching this. We're not coming back. Then we move to the second one. Not only do people go back and then have the same thing happen where they're terrorized by dinosaurs again, and people die to dinosaurs again, but they bring a T-Rex into San Francisco. That's the ending. Well, yeah. That's not how it ends, but that's the ending chunk.
Climax, yeah. Oh, sorry.
And then they have to deal with that. Then the third one, some family is now camping. Oh, I lied. The second one is a separate island. There are 2 islands with dinosaurs. So it was an interesting sequel. I'll say it was a fine sequel. The third one, the one character who was really anti, the dinosaurs, says he just goes back to one of the islands. He kind of gets baited into it, but he shouldn't have done what he was doing in the first place. And he's back on the island, and he tries to ride it out. And it was boring and pretty forgetful.
I agree. From what I remember of 3, because I remember seeing parts of it, 3 is garbage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, not good. Then they kind of rebooted, sequeluded the franchise with Jurassic World. Which, as a sequel, they're not that great. Because they really ignore what the first movies were saying, which was, this was a bad idea, and no one should do it. And then they redid it. And, in the original number 2, they brought the dinosaurs to the main world. It didn't go well. I got it wrong. I was corrected in chat here. It wasn't San Francisco, it was San Diego.
Yeah.
What do they do in the second new one? They bring a bunch of dinosaurs in to this mansion to get auctioned off as, war items. Which now which is just weird.
Yeah. Don't they put lasers on little dinos to use them to cut through stuff?
No, they made a new dinosaur, which is basically just the same as the other new dinosaur that they made in the first one. It just looks different.
Oh.
And if you point a laser at something, then it'll kill it.
Oh, okay, right.
Yeah. Maybe number 2 is a good sequel. It's a fine movie as a sequel. Maybe it's alright. The other ones as sequels are not good. Because they totally disregard what the previous ones had taught and said about the characters and the lessons that they learn. Don't mess with nature because it'll mess back. And they just kept doing it and it kept messing back. Yeah.
I don't have much to say on Jurassic Park. I said my piece. I enjoyed the reboot of the first one, I guess.
No, it's not that it's a bad movie. Jurassic World is fine. But as a sequel, it's not very good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I think, we'll wrap up pretty soon.
I have a couple little
just one-offs?
One-offs.
Yeah, I think let's throw some one-offs out there and then we'll wrap it up.
I don't know if it's technically a one-off now because there's another one coming out.
What are you referring to?
But Kingsman?
Yeah.
Kingsman 1, definitely better than the second one. But
that's an interesting sequel.
Because it's not...
The second one is not that much worse than the first one.
It's just different.
It's maybe not even worse, but the shock factor was totally spent on the first one, and they didn't one-up
No,
that.
It was ruined. The shock factor for 2 was ruined by the trailers.
Well, we can't include trailers in our discussion of the movie. But I think as a film, the shock factor of number 2 was not as amazing as the shock factor of number 1
Yes.
because it was so new, and there's this, cinematography of the fight scene that are going on, and you how do you win? You blew everyone's head up.
Yeah.
And it looked like confetti. That was amazing.
Super, and you got a very funny, compelling James Bond villain.
Yeah.
Samuel Jackson with a lisp.
Yeah.
Look at me, Steven.
Yeah.
So.
Right, and then you bring the second one. It's not a bad movie. It's fine. It's fun. It's cool. The action's great. But it just didn't bring that same oomph to the table.
It just got.
It's not even that bad of a sequel. It just didn't bring the same.
It's a different movie.
The same awe value.
Well, they don't have to do that. They were trying something different.
Yeah.
It is literally a direct sequel,
yep.
which is nice. It's like what, weeks after? Like it's not a lot of time.
Yeah. Definitely, probably less than a year.
Yeah, definitely. And it's just like we don't know where Eggsy stands at the end of the first one, really.
Yeah.
Like he's technically not, like it's a cliffhanger. You don't actually know if he's an agent.
Yeah.
Because he was doing all that work unofficial.
Yeah.
So like, and then
just with Merlin's blessing.
Yeah, and then to see him, like right in the action, in the thick of it, doing the whole thing, was great. It was a really good payoff for that.
Yeah.
Same with I don't remember the girl's name.
Roxy.
Rest in peace. F's in the chat for Roxy. Just gets absolutely demolished in the first 10 minutes of the movie.
Yeah.
Which is sad. But it's a good sequel. It's fine. Like it's not better than the first one, but it's also not worse.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
That's the only other really one-off little ones that I
got. Yeah. Red.
Oh,
which is
Red.
Red and Red 2. They're good. They work with each other well. They make sense.
Yep.
The story of, especially with Bruce Willis and his wife.
Yep.
It's a good continuation. They meet, and then it's okay. What now happens when she's married to this former Secret Service agent,
retired and extremely dead.
Yeah, dangerous.
Oh, right.
They're very much alive.
Yes, right.
Even if John Malkovich does fake his death, hilariously in the second one.
Yes, he does.
And that's a sequel. We talked about bad ones. I got some for you, man.
Oh,
I don't know if you've seen either of these. Zoolander 2 and Anchorman 2.
Oh, let's talk about Anchorman.
Man, those are bad sequels.
So, just preface, if you're going to watch Anchorman, we didn't recommend it to you, or Zoolander, okay? We're just going to talk about them as movies.
They're a little raunchy.
They're a little raunchy, be warned. Okay, we do not endorse the direct comedy of these movies. Okay? Sure. Anyway, Anchorman 2 is just a bad movie in general, and it is an awful sequel.
Yep.
The premise of the first one, really funny.
Super simple.
Dirt simple, small budget, relies really good on actual good jokes and writing.
All the jokes that they try to recreate in the second one of both these movies
are bad.
They do so much worse.
There's like Anchorman.
I don't even like the joke was that hard to mess up.
No, it's not. Like
oh my days.
Like Anchorman is known for its fight scenes.
Fight scene.
Yeah. And like the first one is super unique. It's funny.
It just came out of nowhere too.
And it was just like it was totally like somebody on set was like, we should have a street fight. Like that's how it feels to me, and I love it. The second one, they're calling in like airstrikes and
there's an alien guy.
Yeah, it was just like I get what I think I understand the writers were going for, like just throw it all at it, whatever. In this, like they're pulling the attitude of like whatever, it's a comedy, it's funny.
Yeah. Allow me to throw you a thread between these two movies that bring them together for me. Not just that Will Ferrell's in both of them, but the big story of these two revolves around this son that both these characters, the titular characters, have. The kids aren't likable at all. The audience doesn't care for them.
Right.
And they make it so much to the point of what these movies are, and I don't care. And then that's what you want your motivation to be, and I have no investment in it. And the jokes are worse, the comedy's worse, the story's worse, everything you repeat, they do it worse. Not a good sequel.
Not a good sequel.
We mentioned in our Kevin James podcast, Grown Ups 2, Paul Blart Mall Cop 2. similar. I mean, I don't think they were.
They suffer
There
from...
weren't new kids in either of them.
No. New
but,
actors.
But, everything they tried to repeat didn't do it as good. The jokes, not as good.
They suffer from what I like to call sequelitis. You can't tell the exact same story twice.
Now, I'll throw you something else. Okay? You want to repeat the same jokes in your movie? Well, maybe it just won't work. Except that it might.
Because
I will present to you a sequel that was done 10 years after the original. That was good. I don't know if you've seen it. It's Zombieland 2 Double Tap.
Ah.
Have you seen it?
No, but I know of that. Yeah.
Yeah. So they made this movie 10 years later. I don't even know if people were asking for it, but they made it anyways. They didn't have to make it. But everything that they did that was similar to the first one, they did at least equally as good, if not better. They threw in new segments, and some of the comedy was maybe not as direct hitting, funny. Yeah. But they knew when to cut it off. There's a segment in the movie where they meet basically, other versions of themselves.
Yes, yeah.
I think it's in the trailers. And they could have run with that joke for like the second half of the movie, and it would have died so quick.
Yeah.
But they let it run for a little bit, and then they shut it down. And it worked. It was fun. It was funny for a little bit, and when it was getting old, they shut it down. That's a good sequel.
Fair.
The characters, they make sense. The dynamics are still similar from where we left them off in the first one, right? And it feels like 10 years have passed. Things are not going to be exactly the same as when we left off, but they'll be similar.
Yeah.
It was a good sequel.
I agree. One other one that came to my mind. It's probably the last one I want to wrap up. Pardon my language. Kick-Ass and then Kick-Ass 2.
Yeah.
The first one. Funny, unique movie, a really good take on a superhero movie of like, you're not a superhero, Like, it's very, like, real. Like, it's satire on superhero movies done in a really good action-filled way. And you get, I can't remember.
Who?
I'm blanking on Dad's name. Nicolas Cage.
Yeah.
And you get Nicolas Cage playing Batman. Okay?
So who murders people? He's supposed to.
Straight up just murks people. But, and they set up this, like, really cool dynamic between Hit Girl and Kick-Ass at the end of the movie.
Yeah.
Like, this 13-year-old girl is just clearly better than this 17-year-old man.
Yeah.
And
they set up a villain really well at the end of the first one, too. Right? That comes back with a vengeance in the second one.
Yeah.
Which I'm not going to say his name on the podcast.
Yeah.
It is quite vulgar.
Yeah, again, do not watch this movie if you don't like vulgar monster language. It is definitely not for that.
Yeah.
It's not for that audience.
But yeah, sure. Kick-Ass 2 is a good continuation off that first one. And it takes place a few years later.
It sucks, though. In so many other... As a sequel, it picks up just fine.
You think that one is better than 2?
Yes, by far.
I found 2 better.
I haven't seen 2 in a little while.
But
I just watched 1. But
I don't feel like
the only reason I say that...
I'll accept your opinion.
The only reason that I say it is not as good as a sequel, and you're making it out to be, is, like, the whole, like, thing with, like, his character. Anyway, the whole point with that hero's character is, like, Kick-Ass's character is, like, he's just a human. He's just a human. Like, he gets beat up. Like, he
except that he lost all feeling in his nerves.
Yeah, but he still just gets the living daylights beaten out of him. He's still not good at being a superhero, but he does it.
Yeah.
But then they just take all of that away in the second movie, and he doesn't want to do it anymore.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's not a good sequel.
But then he does do it.
Only because she gets, like, beaten up and taken.
Yeah.
So, like, it just, you set up this really unique, cool superhero who does it because he just genuinely really wants to help people and just gets the daylight kicked out of him, but has the perseverance to keep going, and you just strip all that away from him.
Well, there was something that way they made superheroes illegal or something. as well. And that's
Yeah,
why he
but
stopped.
they made vigilantes illegal, but vigilantes has already been illegal before that.
Yeah, they
So
were breaking down on it a little more. That's why he stopped.
sure, but it's still like that. That's even worse than that. Even that supports my point even more that the motivations of that character were bad.
Sure.
They just completely stripped them away of all of that.
I think if I can come up with another one on the spot.
That Kill Bill in chat.
Kill Bill, I think, felt more like one movie that was split in two, which maybe that means it was a good sequel.
I think that makes a good sequel. You know what? We'll end with this one: Infinity War
An Endgame.
and Endgame. Do we count quick discussion? Do we count it as a sequel, or is it the same movie, just in two parts?
Well, it is a sequel because there's filler in between. There is Ant-Man and the Wasp,
But
and then there's Captain Marvel, which we'll say was the space between Infinity War, which was one. Well, technically it was three, but one.
So is that what we're defining as sequel? Is that another movie takes place even in the universe?
No.
I guess Marvel is a completely different discussion.
Yeah.
We'll just stick to Endgame or Infinity War to Endgame.
Yeah.
Is it a good sequel?
Yeah. I personally find Endgame better than Infinity War.
I'm the other way around.
You think so?
Yeah.
Tell me why that is.
I like Infinity War because they lose.
Okay.
Don't get me wrong, I love Endgame. I love seeing the whole fight scene, and it's epic, and I love it, and it's just pure visual mastery in front of me. It's amazing. But I like the passions and the things that go on in Infinity War more than I do in Endgame. Because Endgame, you know they're gonna win.
Yeah.
In Infinity War, you're on the edge of your seat. You actually don't know.
Yep.
And so
Infinity War? Oh, we knew they were gonna lose.
I honestly, I did, in the sense of like having studied the movie for so long, but it did such a good job of me being in the theater. I was like, maybe I was able to suspend all disbelief of what I knew about the movie and able to like get completely sucked in.
Yeah.
So
I will say, Endgame deals with the consequences of Infinity War.
Yes, it's a good.
Really well.
It is a good sequel. I'm not arguing that. I'm just.
Yeah, they lost, and a lot of that movie is them having to deal with it and move on.
Yeah.
In a lot of different ways, and to fix what they've done, they're gonna have to suffer more than they did in the previous one. Right. So, other than getting dusted, the only person who really died was Vision. Right, because everyone else, at least at the halfway of the movie, you believe that everyone else can come back.
Yeah.
So that's their mission. Then Black Widow dies in, this mission to bring everyone else back.
Yep.
And then, Tony Stark dies to bring everyone, or I guess he doesn't die to bring everyone back, but, Hulk sort of loses functionality in his arm to bring everyone back. And then Tony gives his life to save the battle so that everyone who came back and everyone who didn't need to come back, that was already there, can, not die.
Yep.
Because realistically, I mean, that's a fight that could have gone either way with the size of those armies.
Yeah.
Right.
For sure.
People died, and it was really grounded.
It was. I'm definitely.
It was a good continuation off of Infinity War as well.
100%. But so overall, we talked a lot about good sequels, a lot about bad sequels.
Sequels can work.
Yes, I think Connor and I still both fall on the side of caution.
What I will say is, a little while ago, I would watch a movie and say, "Oh, I really hope they make a second one of that." Right. Yeah. Lots of people talk about them making a new Joker movie. I don't want them to now. I think sequels are too overdone.
Yeah.
It can work. Oh, I'm going to mention something really quickly because there's another thing that some movies do that's bad. My two biggest examples of this are the movies Warcraft and Alita Battle Angel. You watch the movie, you're following a story.
Yeah.
And you know where it has to lead. Right? There's a big confrontation that's going to happen in Warcraft.
Yep.
Right? And in Alita Battle Angel, she's going to go up to the city in the sky and face, the big baddie. And both movies end with them kind of looking towards their objective and saying, "Yep," and you'll find out what happens in part 2, and then the movie ends. And I admire that you had confidence and you'd planned for a sequel, but you didn't finish your story. So I think we're not talking about prequels today, but a sequel's not going to work as well if the movie leading up to it doesn't have a place where it's come to a good conclusion.
Yeah, I talked about that. I said, like, if the foundation isn't, like, as good, it's just going to decline.
Yeah. That first movie needs its own story, and then you can leave room for the second one. But these movies should have brought something full circle to an end with room to grow, but they didn't. They relied entirely on the fact that they were going to make another one, and it doesn't look like either of them are getting a sequel. So
money
now
moves.
They're just awkward movies that don't end.
Yeah, I don't like that. So
sequels can work. Don't run with the highest optimism that you're going to make one to a point where you don't finish one movie. Right? Sequels are fine. They can be. They have potential to be really good. The sequel potential to be really bad.
When this gets really famous, I just want Hollywood executives to listen to me in this one thing. Please don't make a Baby Driver 2.
I don't think that
Edgar
Wright will let him.
Just please don't. Okay, that's all I ask. You can keep making Fast and Furious movies till the end of time, and I will keep throwing my money at you.
Yep.
Don't touch Baby Driver, and don't touch other good one-off movies because we need more of them.
Yeah, which we will discuss in a later episode.
Yeah. So,
thank you for watching.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening, whatever you're doing. This has been the Moviecast in part 1 of the Hollywood discussion. Sequels.
Yes. This is an ongoing thing. We'll be sporadically dumping them.
We'll be back to talk more.
Yeah.
What will it be next time? Will it be prequels? Will it be adaptations? Will it be real life stories in the movies? Who knows?
Documentaries?
You'll find out.
Yeah. Anyway, make sure, hit like, subscribe, share it with all your friends. Remember, if you want to catch us live, every Monday, 7 p.m. Central Time, twitch.tv/LogieBear74. If you want to watch, or not watch, but rather read and keep up on more thoughts and reviews on movies, check out Shininator Film Reviews at facebook.com/Shinmin's List.
Alright.
And we look forward to viewing movies with you in the future. I don't know. And I want to come up with a cool ending. Just drop my controller. Nice. Anyway.
Grab that gem, you guys. We'll see you next week.
Yeah. Goodbye, everybody.
See you.